Thanks everybody. Looks like we have a good group today. And Christina, do you want to talk about who will be speaking and why and how we're going to sort of roll all this out?
Yeah, so thanks everybody for joining. Very excited to have Ryan Callahan and Rita Carroll on the call today. They have been on a few prior calls, but they're going to lead the discussion today, which will be about the reopening of stores. So, you know, I know the timing of reopening will be different for everyone on this call, but running event, you know, us at Diversified are collaborating with Runhouse on trying to provide assets that could be helpful when you are ready to reopen. So Ryan and Rita are going to talk through, you know, kind of what they're working on. And we encourage any feedback, questions, if there's anything that would be helpful that, you know, we could work on for you, we're open to hearing it. So you can use the chat function if that's preferable, or, you know, happy to have people speak as well. So with that, I will pass it over to Ryan. But thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christina. And thank you, everybody who's attending. Yeah, we've got like 86 people in here, which is awesome. So I've got a whole outline. I'm going to be diving into some stuff, but I really would love for this to be as collaborative as possible. If people have questions, if people, you know, have any suggestions, whatever, like I welcome all of that. So put in there, and Christina, I guess you'll maybe monitor the chat a bit and can jump in with stuff. So, you know, one of the hard things about approaching creative challenges when you're talking industry-wide is that, you know, there's not always a one-size-fits-all approach. So we're going to kind of go through some top-level, some thoughts, some strategies, how you can plan a relaunch strategy for your store. But obviously, relaunch is going to look different based on your territory, based on when your store opens. Some people are opening in a couple of weeks. Some people might not open for a month and a half. So we're bearing all of that in mind as we're talking through this. And my hope is that everybody can kind of adapt the things that we talk about today into your own strategy for your store. You know, how this kind of came about is, you know, we talked to Mark and Christina, and I thank them so much for putting on these town halls every week and for really spearheading this. I know this gets said a lot, but, you know, it's really awesome that we're in an industry where, yeah, there's competition, you know, to an extent, but by and large, we're all in this together. And what's good for one of us is often good for all of us. So it's really great to see all the collaboration, to see all the information sharing, to see people saying, hey, does anybody know what goes on line 13 of the PPP application? Like, and it's helped us too as a business that exclusively focuses in running. So I just wanted to say that real quick. It's been really great to see, and I really appreciate Christina and Mark, your guys' efforts in pulling these things together every week. So first, let me just do a really quick introduction. I'm Ryan Callahan. We also have Rita Carroll on here somewhere on one of these little screens, little boxes on my screen. Rita and I are the co-founders of Runhouse, which is a creative agency that focuses exclusively in the running space. We work with run retailers, running races, and running brands. And that's it. We just do creative work. We do some operations stuff, but by and large, we do creative work within running. I've been in running specialty since 2010. So this is, you know, since I left college, this has been my home and has meant a lot to me, my career path through run specialty over the years. So, you know, I know over the last 6 weeks, things have been very uncertain. Things have been anxiety ridden. A lot of these conversations have revolved around cash flow and can we pay our employees? How are we going to afford our lease? And what is it going to look like when we reopen from a financial standpoint? Today, I want to focus on fun stuff and exciting stuff, which is how do we anticipate this moment in time that is about to happen, which is the reopening of the channel. And you know why I think this is really important for us to talk about is this should be a pretty big celebration. You know, I don't know about everybody's communities, but in our community here in Philadelphia, there's more runners than ever before. There are more people who have never run who are now getting into running. There are people who run and are running more often. They're all fragmented. It's all through social distancing. but I really think there's this big groundswell going on in the sport, which is really great to see. And since the channel is so community oriented, I really think that reopening is going to be this really exciting moment for you, for your staff, but also for your customers and for the running communities in your town. So while I know it can be a little difficult to be thinking about the day where the store is going to reopen, and it can maybe even be a little difficult to be thinking super positively right now, I think this is a moment in time that we all know is coming, and that we should be building a content strategy around. And that's largely what we want to focus on today, is just how do we build out a strategy? What kinds of things should we be thinking about? You know, if you have any downtime, right now is the time to be thinking about how it's going to look when your store opens, not when the mayor of your town or the governor says, okay, you can reopen back up. It's not a quick little post that says, hey, we're open. I really think your communities are going to be excited for your stores open, more so than almost any other kind of local business. So that's going to be largely what we're going to focus on today. Again, as we go through this, please, give us feedback, ask questions. Christina, I may pause just every once in a while and just kind of kick it over to you to just see where we're at so far with questions. And then the final piece of this is we're going to talk a bit about some exciting stuff that we're working on collaboratively with Running Insight and TRE, Mark and Christina, to give you guys some tools, some free tools and assets to help support these relaunch efforts. Because we know that everybody has a lot on their plate right now and everybody's thinking about a lot of things. And while you may be able to put some strategy together around your relaunch, maybe you don't have the time to be designing assets and doing creative and creating emails or whatever. So we're going to talk through some ways that we're going to work to help you guys with that. And if I pause every once in a while, I'm just going over to my little outline that I have here to make sure I don't miss anything. So first, let's talk really quickly about what we see that is working right now in terms of social media and content. Like, what kind of messaging is currently working? So for anybody who maybe hasn't been doing a ton of stuff currently right now, this is my just very broad assessment of where I see things right now and what's kind of working and not working. Engagement, from what I've seen, is way up for accounts that are really doing things to create interaction with their community. That's way up, and it makes sense. People are sitting at home, they're staring at their phones all day, they've got cabin fever, they're looking for some kind of connection. So we're seeing a lot of accounts and a lot of stores that are posting things like daily running journals, or running Instagram stories that your customers can fill in information on. It says, today I ran blank miles, and I was excited because blank. Like, that kind of stuff is really getting a lot of good traction. Posts, we're asking people, how was your run? What's going on? Like, anything where you can create some kind of engagement right now. We're seeing a ton of success in that. And, and everybody's always trying to create engagement, but I think a lot of times it can feel like a one-way street. Right now, it definitely feels a bit more of a two-way street. The audience is a bit more alert and aware and wanting to engage than maybe ever before. So if you're not, I would definitely be focusing some content strategies around how to create engagement right now, regardless of this reopening phase, which we're going to talk about. Challenges. I mentioned this on a call a couple weeks ago. Philadelphia runner in our hometown has been doing this thing called PR Solo, where they ran around town and they chalked on the ground like starting and finishing points for various distances. So they put a mile out on the river, start point, end point. They put a 5K, start point, end point, and they would just kind of chalk them all around town. And if you were out on a run and you would see it, you'd go, oh, hey, here's where a mile begins. And then, a mile later, you would see the end point. So it's this really fun way to kind of create engagement, to do these challenges. They use the hashtag to have people post about it. And I thought that was like a really clever kind of fun way for their store to still be involved with their customers during a time where they're not actually seeing them in person. So challenges have been really big. For stores that own races, we've noticed some people dabbling with virtual races. I think virtual races are great as long as you've got kind of a creative hook, as long as you're, as long as you're putting a little bit more thought and efforts and energy into it. But I think challenges have been going really well. And celebrating, any feel-good stories right now. Like we mentioned this a couple weeks ago, that through the first 4 weeks of coronavirus, like every single day I had 5 or 6 more like just depressing emails in my inbox from a local business that was just about how terrible everything was because of coronavirus. And it was like it is, and it sucks, and we get it. But I think the messages that are really resonating now are good news, celebrations. If any of your customers are doing anything cool, if anybody in your community is doing anything really cool, if you have customers who are frontline workers, can you feature them? Can you give them a shout out? Celebration has been kind of a really big thing that we've noticed. So kind of where we step in all of this is, and then we're going to kind of segue into relaunch. About 6 weeks ago, Rita and myself sat down and we said, look, let's create some content for the channel. Let's put together some stuff around, just that everybody can use for free, put it out there, and has like a very strong unifying message. So we did this mini Keep Running Local campaign. We created a bunch of assets that say Keep Running Local on them. We created a bunch of daily journals. Some of you may be using them. Some of you may have seen them. If you haven't, you're welcome. We post them every day. You're welcome to swipe them and use them for your accounts. And we saw a lot of positive response between both a unifying message that transcended geography, that kind of went around, that was both local, Keep Running Local, but that was also embraced by stores around the country. Palmetto Running Company even kind of embraced the campaign and launched werunlocal.org out of it, which some of your stores may have even received funds from. So Palmetto spearheaded that. So we kind of sat there and thought, like we might be kind of onto something here in the sense that everybody is so starved for good content and everybody wants some really good messaging to put out there. But everybody was just either too stressed, too strapped, didn't have the resources. So, and all of that's still available, by the way. We'll have a follow-up and we'll point you to where, if any of you want to use any of that artwork, it's free and it's available for anybody in the channel. So then Mark, Christina, Rita, and I started talking, and we were like, this relaunch is going to be a really big deal. And can we replicate kind of what we did with Keep Running Local, dive a bit deeper, create a bigger asset pool, and create something that everybody can use for a Run Specialty relaunch. So we're going to kind of tack that on at the end of this conversation on things that we're actually tangibly working on. But just keep that in mind as we're walking through some steps that we can be taking for relaunch, that we're also working on some packages and some tools for you guys to use. Can I pause for a second? Are we okay? This is very weird when you're just talking to yourself in your bedroom to a bunch of strangers on a computer screen.
You're doing great, Ryan. No questions so far, so I think you're doing
Awesome.
great.
Awesome.
Yep.
Okay. So, all right. So what does relaunch look like, and what should we be doing right now to start planning for it? I think that relaunch is going to be two really key steps. And these are kind of no-brainers. You should take this anytime you're planning a message around a moment. And all of us have experience with this, right? I imagine nearly every store here builds up to big moments throughout the year, whether it's the big marathon in spring that, your customer, your sales go up in accordance to leading up to it. Maybe you sponsor it. Maybe you show up at the expo. All of your runners are training for it. You have a training crew. You're used to building up to these moments. You're used to telling stories around these moments in time that you can anticipate happening. This is yet another one of those moments, only it's just super unique and hopefully a once in a lifetime kind of moment. But just like we plan out a message at the beginning of marathon season or the beginning of here in Philadelphia of Broad Street season, if you're reopening 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks from now, we can start sitting down right now, grab your marketing team if you have one, grab your co-owner, or if you're just a sole owner with no marketing team, grab a pen and paper and let's start taking some notes. Because there's two things that you should really focus approaching into any one of these moments. And let's apply this today to this moment about reopening. First, what's our message? Okay, what is our message and how are we going to focus that message? So how do we want to talk to our audience when we reopen? And when I'm talking about how do we talk to them, I'm talking about through your channels, your Instagram, your Facebook, your email, your store windows, and any other touch points that you have with your customer. So first is, let's focus our message. Right? I know you want to say a lot of things to a lot of people right now. You want to talk to the newfound walkers, and you want to talk to all these different kind of groups of people in different types of way. You maybe want to talk to frontline healthcare workers. You also want to talk to long established customers. You want to talk to people who haven't shopped with you in a long time because maybe you're hoping that they're going to be new customers again after this is all over. So first, let's just think about what is our overarching message? What is that message going to be? And how do we keep it focused? And how do we make it consistent across our platforms? We're working on some kind of tagline stuff that we think is going to be both kind of fun and powerful for the whole channel, that we'll release, in the next couple of weeks, and we can talk about a little bit at the end here. But if you have anything, that you guys can be thinking, again, like, hashtag Naperville up and running again, or whatever it may be, is, DC is still running, or DC running again, or whatever. If you can create kind of focus points that you can craft messages around, both in social content and create conversation through hashtags, and then also have it through email, I think a really consistent message is going to be really helpful and great. So step one is finding out what your message is going to be, and that you're going to tailor to yourself, although I'll go through a couple of themes and topics that I think could make sense. And then focusing that message in. What's the tone going to be? Are we celebrating? Are we cautiously celebrating? Because we know a lot of people are still going through tough times. Are we coming in with a little bit of a more like, man, times are really tough. We got hit really hard with that. Thank you so much. Like kind of a gratitude style message. Think through how you want to show up and sound when you come back. A few topics within this first silo that we've just been thinking through. One, celebration, right? Let's keep the message as positive as possible. It's been a really, really tough time for the whole country. It's been an especially tough time for run specialty in the race industry. I think your customers are going to want to hear a really positive message though. So celebrating, like, that's right, we're back open. Let's go. Let's do this. Let's get out and run. Anywhere where you can really have a celebratory positive message. Gratitude, I think, is another great area of topic. Who are those customers who showed up for you over the last 6 weeks, right? I think a lot of stores probably had customers who bought gift cards online, who bought shoes online, who spent more money than usual because they just wanted to support you. Can we download the names of those people? Can we grab all of these people who showed up over the last 6 to 8 weeks for our stores? And can we focus something specifically to them? Or maybe it's a broader gratitude towards the community. Thank you guys so much. Your running, your messages, your creativity, the way you responded to these challenges inspired us so much. And we're just so excited to be back open and serving you and serving this community again. So I think gratitude is kind of a really great place to be focusing your message. And then what are some kind of fun, special sauce, run specialty only kind of touch points that you guys can do? Handwritten cards to your top customers, throwing in an extra piece of swag or something on a purchase from an online order from one of your best customers. And then lastly, I do think there should be some messaging. This might be a separate channel, or it might be something that comes a little bit farther down, which is welcome to running. Like there are going to be new runners. Like I know so many people right now who are fitness people who never run outside, and all they've been doing is running outside, or people who just have never run before and have never been very active before, but they're just being driven crazy that they want to jump in and get into running. So I think some kind of welcome to running, I think some kind of message that is focused on those people who are coming in. And that rolls into some kind of, level of acceptance message, right? This is a huge community, and it's gotten even that much bigger. New faces, new people, new types of customers and runners who you've never interacted with before. Like, let's have this very inclusive, celebratory, hey, we're back, welcome back. And hey, do we have any new faces out there? Let's celebrate that. So that's kind of step one. Let's focus our message. What are the topics we want to talk about? Step two, and again, these are basics, but they're the kinds of basics that a lot of times people just don't have the time to do, or, sometimes it just feels overwhelming. But you do these two basics leading up to any kind of moment in time for your store, and you're really going to show up in a much more buttoned up kind of way. Step two is identify where the message is going to go, right? So how do we want to tell our story? Do we want to do Instagram? Do we want to do Facebook? Do we want to send out an email blast? If we're going to do an email blast, do we want to target it and make it very hyper specific to a certain audience? Or do we want to make it super broad and just kind of, an open letter to the running community kind of message? But think through, what are those platforms? Where is your message going to go? And if you come up with something creative, if you've got a creative idea, how far can you expand that world? So if you have some kind of great message or theme around your reopening, can you have an event around it? If events are allowed, or at some point in time, can you have an event around it? Can you do merchandise with it? Can you have little postcards that you're dropping in? Can you print up stickers? Think of this as this like once in a lifetime marathon event that is happening that will never happen again. How would you celebrate something like that? And how would you build out a world around it, and create messages? And where would those messages go? And what kind of stuff are you going to produce? So step one, what's the message? How do we focus the message? Step two, where's the message going to go? Right? I know it's a lot more complicated than that, but that is your starting point. Let me pause for a minute, because now I've been talking for 21 straight minutes. Still no questions, Christina?
We don't have any questions right now.
Okay.
I'm tempted to just call on someone.
Everybody,
Yeah, you have all the answers.
Yeah, Chris, go ahead.
Yes, Chris.
So one of the things we've been talking about this whole thing, because we might open up as early as next week, but depends on what our governor decides. But our discussion, 110 minutes of it this morning with 4 of us, and then other email chains and all this stuff about when we reopen, just without diving into the weeds on the challenges and how we're going to do it all. I love the idea. Obviously, we're getting to where we can have, messages of gratitude and excitement for reopening. At the same time, we're going to reopen in the most probably complicated and difficult operating methods, non-customer friendly, that we've ever had. And one of the things I do really want to make sure is that when people come in, kind of 2 things. I want to make sure that they get that, hey, this isn't that you need to know this is going to be hard. It's not going to be what you think. It's not going to be what you want, but you please have patience. And then we're going to have requirements. Like I believe we're going to require that people come in a mask. And if you don't have a mask, now hopefully our state will require them in our type of circumstance. But if you don't have a mask, we're not letting you in, and so some of those kind of things, in addition to the door being locked at our smaller stores and 1 person at a time and appointments, we need to get that across in a good way. And that one, we'd love your advice and insight on that.
Chris, it's a great question. And it's the thing that's running through the back of my mind as we talk about all this, because we can talk about celebration and excitement and all this stuff. And I do think the message needs to tilt as positive as possible. But we're going to be opening up into this totally new reality, of which we don't know how long it's going to last for. My initial knee-jerk on it is as best as we can, and keep in mind too, there's sensitivities here, right? Because there's some people who are going through things much worse than we are, and some people are going through things not as bad as we are. So there's going to be, you're going to want to avoid being too punchy with any messaging. But my initial knee jerk is like, how do we embrace it? How do we make it goofy? How do we make it Run Specialty has always been a pretty irreverent channel, right? Like, sure, running is serious to certain people, and we're all trying to run faster and set goals and stuff. But by and large, it's a really goofy group of people. And so, if your staff's wearing masks, can we design just really weird looking, goofy, Naperville Running Company masks? Can we put some content on there, of that kind of pokes fun at how ridiculous we have to be in this time? So I think you're right. Like it needs to be addressed. You can't just be like, hey, we're hoping, come on back in. And then people get to your front door and they're standing 6 feet apart and they're being let in one at a time. And then the promise and the expectation don't match the reality. But I think the best, you can just lean right into it and be irreverent about it. Set the expectations, right? Hey, we're back. Things are going to be a little different, and they're going to be a little different for a while. I think being honest with your audience, transparent with your audience is always number one. That said, behind the mask, behind the layers of Purell, behind, the sneeze guard that we have at our cash wrap is the same passionate team of people who have been here for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. and we're going to wade through this just like you are. We're going to make the most of it. You know, and I don't know, do you, for the first few months, you have cards, you know, little gratitude cards. Thank you so much for shopping, that you drop in the box, that when they open and they get home, it's kind of a nice little extra added surprise. Like, hey, thank you for coming in. They pop it on, like, oh, it's funny. Does your card say, well, that was awkward, ... you know, and you type out some little thing that's like, hey, I know we were all wearing masks and blah, 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 but at the end, thank you so much for coming in. We can't wait to see you back out there. So these are just very random, silly ideas that are shooting out of my head in real time. But I think as best as you can, you're transparent about it, but you just lean into it and you make the most of it. I think it's a great question, and something that we can take into account as we're kind of building out this stuff.
And Ryan, I did have a question come in, sent to me privately. Do you have any advice on, you know, how you can remain positive without being too positive or without being insensitive? Do you have any advice about that?
Yeah, again, that's another great question. Another place where you're going to need to find balance. You know, I would say that at the end of the day, all you can be is you. So remain positive. I would try to avoid venturing into spaces that you don't have you know, that you either don't feel comfortable with or don't have an authentic connection to. You know, so try to avoid doing any kind of like, you know, hey, like, for example, hey, we have custom buffs that we're selling now for $20. Come on in, and then people all of a sudden claim that you're exploiting, you know, this thing in order to make some money. So I would just continue to be you, continue to be the most authentic version of you. And I think celebration and I think empathy goes a long way. So, you know, I think making sure your message has some level of, we know times are tough, but we're going to keep running. We're going to keep moving forward. We're going to keep doing what we can do, you know, and we're going to keep supporting those who are vulnerable. We're going to keep supporting our frontline healthcare workers. We're going to keep doing all of these things. But all we know to do, you know, as running store owners and running store staff, is to run and to evangelize running to as many people as possible. And, you know, it's a much better space to be in than a lot of other people. And that the thing that we're selling is something that's really positive and that a lot of people can get a lot out of. So yes, I would encourage everybody to be sensitive with your messaging. You know, don't be too irreverent. Don't not be yourself. You know, make sure that you're still continuing to express gratitude for all the people who are going through so much right now. But otherwise, you know, focus on why you exist, right? Like, Run Specialty has always won when people focus on why they exist, right? If you're answering your why every day, which is to get more people running, to be a local shop that is community focused, I don't think anybody's gonna be able to hold that against you. And if you screw up, own it. You know, shoot, you're right. We probably should not have put out there that we were going to be doing a group run next week. That was a silly idea. Sorry, guys. Thanks for the feedback. We'll learn and move on. But yeah, I think it's just being delicate about it and just continuing to be who everybody always is.
Great. Ryan, before we go on to your next part of this, Carrie from Palmetto Running Company is on the phone, and they are open. So she volunteered to kind of share what they're experiencing now that they've opened.
Cool.
Hey guys.
Hey, Carrie.
So we just opened up on Tuesday, and I will say that we were very unprepared because we didn't think it'd be happening so soon. South Carolina is one of the very few states that has started opening things back up. And so I would definitely very much take Ryan's advice on starting to prepare now, no matter how far away you think that your opening may be. Start talking about it, start buying the cleaning supplies that you think that you'll need. We went out and just like that day went to everywhere we could to buy all the wipes, all the sprays. Thankfully we had masks already, gloves, all that stuff. But I'll just tell you guys our experience this week so far. I don't necessarily have advice, but just we saw a lot more people coming to the stores than we expected. Right now, it's a very weird vibe in South Carolina where there's a mix of people that are just like, oh, thank God I'm getting out of the house. But then there's also people that still aren't comfortable because even though we are allowed to be open, there's still a stay-at-home order, which is very conflicting messaging for our residents. So we're still getting a lot of traffic on our website and still doing a lot of virtual fittings, even though our door is open, and we are still getting a lot of people coming into the store. It's weirdly been almost back to normal, which was not expected at all. We did change our hours. We're only open during the week because we're just taking this day by day. But I would just be prepared for anything. We are, like everybody's been saying, trying to convey a message of safety to all of our customers. We only allow 2 customers in at a time because we're only allowed to have 5 people per 1,000 square foot in South Carolina. And we have a little sign on the door that asks people to wait outside. And after the customers leave, we make sure to keep the door shut, wipe everything down, change our gloves, just so that our customers visibly see us making the effort to keep them safe. Because that's our main focus right now, is just making sure that they know that they're safe when they come into our space. But yeah, it's been kind of a weird experience. Obviously, like, feel free to reach out to us over email or call us or whatever if you guys have any questions or want to ask anything.
Great, thanks, Carrie. Ryan, I'll pass it back over to you.
Yeah, and I have seen a couple of questions come in on the chat here. And one of them, I thought Ross from Philly Runner, my old boss, had a good question, which is like thoughts on how to politely message only come in if you are going to buy something, which, I'm sure the message isn't that black and white, but it's, I'm sure the general point is like, we want to avoid when stores reopen that there's just swarms of people who just want to get out and about. And now all of a sudden it's a nice Saturday morning and your store either just has a line of people who just want to come in and just look around, which is in one sense potentially unsafe to have that kind of crowding. And in another sense, considering business has been closed for 2 months, we all want to be helping our top customers. So, I don't know the best way to message that. I mean, I'm sure there's some techniques you could do, like schedule fittings, which Ross mentioned, if your store was set up to do that. One way to kind of maybe gently imply it would be to message out to your customers when the store tends to be slower. You can kind of say, hey, everybody, we're back open. By the way, just in the interest of safety and in the interest of making sure that the stores don't get too crowded, here are some times where we generally are a bit slower, and we'd love if you're looking to be purchasing shoes or get fitted for shoes, right? Which kind of then stipulates in their mind that maybe that's the reason why they should be coming in. Here are some times a day that might work a little bit better to come in than others. I don't know. That's just kind of a thought that comes to mind, is maybe just posting some of your slower times, your typical slower times, encourage that people who are coming in to shop. And maybe it is just changing your messaging for the next month and a half before you can have crowds back in your store. Maybe the message just continues to be, hey, we're open for fittings and for people who are looking for gear. And you don't need to say not people who aren't seriously looking, but you can just say, hey, everybody, we're back open. We're opening back up. Things are a little different. But for anybody who's looking to shop for footwear or get fitted, come on in and we'll make time for you. Trying to see if there's anything else. I had a couple private messages, so just want to see. Okay. Here's one final question. When stores reopen and curbside being available, how is everyone going to set up curbside along with outfitting customers once they open? We are preparing to have one person taking calls and checking out for curbside and appointment-based fittings only initially. So I'll just put that out there. If anybody has, I just think if anybody has an answer to that, they should respond back, because I don't have necessarily an answer or an answer there on that. So it's a bit more of an operational logistical question. So let's talk with maybe, this, like the next 5-10 minutes, we'll talk a bit more to what we're actually working on here and how this is going to roll out and how this can help all of you guys and any retailers in the channel. And then if there's any more questions, great. Or if we all want to wrap it up and hit a happy hour early, fine. Because that's what I'll be doing. So, so what we are planning on doing, in conjunction with Running Insight and TRE, Christina, do you like Running Insight and TRE? Christina and Mark, is that a long enough title for who we're collaborating with?
You can just say the running event.
Okay.
That's fine. Yeah.
So in collaboration with the running event, we here at Runhouse are working on a lot of creative assets to help support the reopening of stores. So we're putting together, we're going to have Instagram story assets. We're going to have Instagram feed assets. We're going to have Facebook assets, email headers, and we're going to have some messaging. We kind of have a campaign concept in mind that we'll kind of share with everybody before it goes live so that everybody can see it. And if anybody wants to send feedback, they're welcome to. But that's what we're working on right now. And over the course of like the next 2 weeks or so, we're going to be building out a bunch of assets for that relaunch. And just like our Keep Running Local stuff, which was kind of a smaller asset portal, we made a few designs. We said, here you go, everybody, take these, run with them. If you want to print them up, post them, do whatever you want, great. We're going to try to flesh this out into a little bit more of an actual robust campaign, so that you guys have some artwork and have some designs that you can work with, that I think are going to work really well around a reopening message. We'll share that with you ahead of time so that, ahead of time from our timeline in terms of when we plan to launch. I know some of you already open and are already reopening, but we'll share it with you ahead before we launch it. So if you do want to build any messaging around the content that we're already putting out there, you'll be able to. So that's going to be coming out in about 2 weeks from now. I think May 11th is our target date to have that. And we'll have a link for you. We have an asset portal on the Runhouse website. If you go to our site a little bit later, right now it's not linked on the top navigation, but we'll link it up there on the top navigation. It just says coming soon when you click on it now, but we'll have an asset portal where you guys can go in, download, get all of your Instagram crops and your social media crops and your website and just a whole variety of different types of assets. And for different places, we'll have, a little mini brand deck with it too. That'll have the Pantones and we'll have the artwork. So if you want to print anything up, if you want to do any merchandise around it, whatever, we're going to have that for the channel. That's going to be free of charge. Everybody in the channel is going to have access to it. Everybody in the specialty channel is going to have access to it. Mark asks me directly some great questions, which is, what is the address where people can see this? So it's going to be runhouse.com, and there'll be a link at the top that'll say asset portal. That's where we're going to house it. And then anything we want to share now, man, not yet. We don't want to yet. I think we're still in the early enough stages, but we will share some stuff really quickly. Mark and Christina, if there's like a way where maybe either everybody who attended today or just your listserv in general, we might be able to send out like a brief that kind of gives people an overview of the campaign that we're thinking of, to allow people to give feedback. And if people want to send us emails or messages, say, hey, this looks great, I have another idea if you want to try to incorporate it, we could definitely do that.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. And then
Cool.
also, Ryan, what sort of timeline are you talking about, for people who are getting ready to open, thinking about getting ready to open, or whose opening is imminent? How soon can people expect to get some of this stuff?
Yeah, so I think, Mark, realistically, we're moving as fast as we can on it. I think realistically, within the next week, we can have kind of a campaign brief overview. And if anybody can see Rita right now, just let me know if she's fallen out of her chair or not. But I think within a week, we can have a brief campaign overview where people will understand what the campaign is, what the concept is, some general ideas of the design direction. And then 1 week from that, having actual assets ready to go out, download. I think May 11th was our target rollout date, which is like 2.5 weeks from now. But we're going to move as fast as we can in order to have stuff. And we also recognize that some people are opening right now. So, I think most people probably aren't going to be open by May 11th. And if they are, you might not be open yet to a place where you're yet willing to celebrate. Like Chris, kind of back to your point from earlier, like a grand opening party for a store doesn't necessarily happen on the opening night. So you guys can open your stores, get the lay for the land, see how it goes for a week or two, read the vibe. Okay, what makes sense? And then maybe start to think through, okay, let's celebrate this moment a bit more. So yeah, that's a very long-winded answer to 1 week seeing something, 2 weeks to a little bit over 2 weeks having actual deliverable assets. I can share my screen actually just super quick if you want me to just kind of so that everybody's who here now can see how this would work, and then that way can save some questions down the road. So I'll just do this super quick for you. Desktop 1, is that what I want to share? Safari. Oh man, I always get so nervous when I do this. Just like, and that sounded weirder than I meant it to sound. I just get nervous about technology and text messages or whatever popping up. It's just all.
Sure, Ryan, whatever is on your desktop, we're concerned.
Oh, the only problem is, and this is where you're supposed to be better prepared for these things, it tells me I need to quit in order to share. Oh no, now I'm sharing. Right?
There you go. Mm-hmm.
Ah, you can see all my notes. So basically how this is going to work is you would go to runhouse.com/asset portal. This page will be branded and be much prettier looking, but you can see with keep running local on there. And then we've got the Run Specialty relaunch kit coming soon. Ooh, what's inside? That's fun. And basically what you'll do, it's set up as though it's a product, but it's just a $0, you add it to your cart. And then, sorry, I'm moving my screen around because I can't see around everybody's faces right now. Just check out. I'll make this super fast, I promise. But the end result, you guys will see kind of how this will be structured, which I think will be helpful. You purchase. So then you get to the end, and it's going to email you the assets, and then you'll also have a link right here where you can click. It'll download, and then this folder, you'll get a folder, and within that folder, you're going to have. Oh, can you guys actually see my desktop, or do you just see Safari right now?
We see it says
Safari.
order confirmed.
Okay. Let me see here. Share Finder. Okay. So now you should see something different. You should see my Finder now.
Yeah.
All right. So you'll get a folder, and then within that folder, you're going to have brand assets. You'll have brand assets, digital assets, print assets. You're going to each one. You'll have window. We'll have window covers. We'll have a poster. We'll have in-store collateral. Production handled by you guys, but you'll have all of the files. So if you say, look, we want to create a window out of this artwork, I want an email header, great. In your email folder, you're going to have that. In your social media folder, you'll have digital ad packages. We do a lot of digital ads. So we'll have things that are cropped appropriately to Facebook, Instagram ads. If anybody does Google ads, we can crop things to those as well. But basically, you're going to have this folder system that's going to have everything in it. We'll have a brief messaging document. We'll have the Pantones, we'll have vector art in case you need to do any kind of production. So that's what that'll look like when that's ready, is that you'll be able to go to our website, you'll be able to go through this portal, and you'll be able to access these assets. And the running event guys will kind of, I think, push this message out to make sure that it gets out to everybody.
Yeah, hey guys, this is Bethany. I'm the marketing manager for TRE and Running Insight. And so we'll have all of this information available. We'll send it out in an email via Running Insight. So we'll send out the link. And we'll also be posting a link on Running Insight as well under our helpful resources page that will link directly to the Runhouse site. So as soon as that stuff is ready.
Cool. That's awesome.
Thanks, Bethany.
Yeah, and we couldn't have pulled this off without the help of the running event. So this, we're going to house these on the Runhouse site, but this is a really collaborative effort between the two of us, and we've been having multiple calls to kind of figure out the right tone, the right message, and figure out really the right kind of message to bring to the channel. So, does anybody have any other questions?
Yeah, thanks.
Sorry.
Does anyone have any specific questions for Ryan or Rita at the moment. There are some specifically about operational stuff, which we can talk about in a second, but I just want to open it up for any questions, follow up for Ryan at the moment. No? So we will follow up with you and kind of give you another way to give us feedback. So look for an email from me or Mark on that. So thank you, Ryan, for all of that, and Rita. I did just want to go back real quick. There have been a lot of questions about, reopening stores and making consumers feel safe. Is Holly still on the phone? She sent me a private message. She has some insight from 3 Dots Design.
Hi.
I see you, Holly.
Did it work? Okay.
Thank you for joining. Yes.
Yeah, I thought I'd chime in really quick. Ryan was doing a great job talking about a couple people about the safety and the feeling of your customer feeling safe. And I've been on a handful of different retail webinars over the last several days outside our channel, which we do a lot because a lot of times the trends that are being set out there, big box or whatever, are driving things that we see in our channels. And yesterday was one with a vice president from Michael's Crafts and also from Kroger. And I thought it was very interesting that they said, hands down, no question, if your customer doesn't feel entirely safe before they get to your store, they're not coming in, which I think we all know, but they were just so adamant about that being their number one concern for all their customers. And so some of the things were, in addition to the messaging, I think Ryan raised a great point about, all the social media and everything, communicating what you're doing. Do you have communication outside the door or on your front window that talks about the safety steps you've done? When the customer walks in, is it visible? Are the things visible that you're doing? And then they mentioned music, which I thought was really a great point. Like maybe you always have good music in your stores, but this time now, is it relaxing and calming? Like your customer needs to come in, and if they were jittery and nervous about it, they need to open the door and feel like, oh, I'm safe. And they just, that was their number one, that was it more than anything else. So really, really, really communicating that clearly, and also how you're keeping your staff safe and communicating that really clearly, because of course, if your staff is safe, then your customers are safe. So I know we've been kind of talking about that, but I just thought, they really drove that home as their number one priority and a few ideas.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks, Holly. So we're going to wrap up. I'm going to pass it back over to Ryan before we finish up. He has one more thing to add. But thank you, everyone, for joining. And we'll continue to do these in the future. So Ryan, back over to you.
Cool. Yeah, I'm sure everybody's not sick of hearing from me right now. But I just want to say thank you guys so much one final time. Thank you to all the retailers who came. Thank you to Christina and Mark for organizing this. Thank you to Rita, even though she didn't do any talking, she's like the creative whiz behind everything we do. So, and when we do launch this, we were talking about, and I don't want to spring this on you, Christina and Mark, without talking to you guys first, but we were talking about doing like a little happy hour where maybe we kind of launch all these assets, people could dig through and people could ask questions. Hey, what does this mean? How could I use this? Whatever. And anybody who wanted to, we might do it as a happy hour where everybody's encouraged to grab a beer and just kind of hang out. And it could be a fun thing, not like a super informational session. So we might do that, whether you guys want to do it through this channel or whether we just go off and do it separately. I think
I love it, Ryan. I'm in.
All right. Awesome. Cool. Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week. Same time, same channel.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Talk to you soon.